She gets to 5-all.
Shock ruling, WTA suspends Valentová. Disgusting remarks on Alex Eala crossed the line, the full explosive story. Welcome back to Court Vision Plus, the one channel on YouTube that doesn't just report the news, we live inside it. We breathe it. We dissect it bone by bone until there is nothing left but the raw, unfiltered truth. And today, Court Visionaries, the truth is absolutely scorching. I don't use that word lightly. I don't say scorching when I mean mildly interesting. No. Today, we have a story so hot that it is singeing the edges of the entire women's tennis world, and by the time we are done here, you are going to be shaking your head in disbelief, then running straight to the comment section to tell me exactly what you think. So lock in. Put the phone down, sit back, hit that full screen button, because this one goes deep. Here's the big picture before we zoom in. The 2026 Qatar Total Energies Open in Doha was supposed to be another glamorous stop on the WTA calendar. Sun-drenched courts, world-class tennis, and the kind of drama you can only find at a major international tournament. And oh, the drama delivered, but not in the way anybody expected. Because right now, the conversation is not about who won the tournament. Right now, the conversation is about a suspension. An official, verified, tour-sanctioned suspension of one of the most exciting young players on the circuit, Czech teenager Tereza Valentová, following a series of offensive remarks directed at none other than the pride of the Philippines herself, Alexandra Eala. The Women's Tennis Association has spoken. And they did not whisper. Let's break this down from the very beginning, because context is everything. You cannot understand the explosion without understanding what lit the fuse. The stage was the Khalifa International Tennis and Squash Complex in Doha, Qatar, a gorgeous, state-of-the-art facility that has hosted some of the most memorable moments in recent tennis history. Walking through those gates, you get a sense of something grand, something important. The Qatar Total Energies Open has grown into one of the most prestigious early season stops for the women's tour. Players come here hungry, motivated, and sharply tuned after the Australian Open swing. The points are important. The prize money is important. And, critically, the momentum you build here can define your entire spring season. Into this cauldron step two of the most exciting young players in the game. On one side of the net, Alexandra Eala, the 20-year-old Filipino sensation who has been doing something remarkable in a sport that has historically not seen many Southeast Asian players penetrate the very highest level. Eala wasn't just showing up in Doha. She was arriving. There is a difference. She came in carrying a career-high ranking sitting comfortably inside the top 40, a number that still makes the Filipino sports community erupt in joy every time they say it out loud. Top 40 in the world. In the world. She was arriving with form, with confidence, and with the backing of an entire nation of fans who have been tracking her rise the way a parent tracks a child's first steps, with breathless, tearful, overwhelming pride. On the other side of the net, Tereza Valentová. 18 years old. Czech. Ferocious. A ball striker who hits the cover off the tennis ball with the kind of controlled aggression that makes coaches drool. Valentová has been rocketing up the rankings, announcing herself to the world as a genuine force of the future. She serves bombs. Her forehand is a weapon. She has ice in her veins and fire in her game. The tennis world was watching her with great anticipation because every now and then, a player comes along who just looks different, who hits the ball and something inside you says, oh, she's the real thing. Valentová is that player. So the matchup on paper? Delicious. Two rising stars. Two young women with everything to prove. A first-round clash that felt like a preview of a rivalry that could define a generation of women's tennis. The Filipino star against the Czech prodigy. The graceful counterpuncher against the aggressive ball striker. Style versus power. Heart versus heat. This was the kind of match you circle on the calendar and make sure your schedule is clear for. And for the first hour, the match delivered on every single promise. The first set was a battlefield of the highest order. Every game was contested. Every point was a story. Eala showed exactly why she belongs in that top 40 conversation. Her footwork was exceptional, her return of serve was picking up pace and length brilliantly, and her ability to redirect the ball and construct points from defensive positions had the crowd buzzing. Valentová, meanwhile, was doing what Valentová does. Serving big. Hitting big. Trying to take the racket out of Eala's hand with sheer weight of shot. The set went to a tiebreak. Of course it did. These two were too good, too determined, too competitive for either of them to simply hand the other a gift. In the tiebreak, Valentová edged it out, 8-6, claiming the first set 7-6. It was a close call. It could have gone either way. But it went to the Czech teenager, and in that moment, you could feel a shift, a subtle, dangerous shift, in the energy on court. The second set was a different story. Valentová found another gear, or perhaps Eala, feeling the fatigue of that brutal first set in the Qatar heat, couldn't quite sustain the intensity. The Czech player took control, powered through the set, and won it 6-1. Match over. Valentová advances. Eala exits in the first round. On paper, that's where the story ends. Scoreboard says what it says. You pack your bags. You review the tape. You get ready for the next tournament. That is the professional life of an athlete. Losses are fuel. Losses are lessons. Every champion has a story full of them. But somebody forgot to tell Teresa Valentová that the match was supposed to end when the last ball dropped. Because what allegedly happened in the immediate aftermath of that match, in the handshake moment, in the press conference area, in the exchanges that followed, is what has lit the internet on fire and brought the full weight of the WTA down on the young Czech star's shoulders. According to multiple reports and sources circulating from Doha, the remarks made by Valentová were not the kind of competitive banter that you occasionally see between athletes on a heated tour. This wasn't trash talk. This was not psychological gamesmanship, the kind of thing that players sometimes deploy to get inside an opponent's head. What Valentová allegedly said crossed into territory that the WTA considers a direct violation of its code of conduct. The remarks were described as offensive, derogatory, and personal in nature. While the specific words have been deliberately kept out of most reports to avoid amplifying the negativity, the tone and nature of the comments have been described by those present as shocking, even by the standards of a tour where competitive fire burns hot. The WTA Tour organizers in Qatar moved swiftly. There was no weeks-long investigation. There was no slow bureaucratic process. When an incident of this nature is sufficiently clear-cut and sufficiently witnessed, the machinery moves fast. They reviewed what happened. They consulted the relevant parties. And then they did something that immediately separated this incident from a routine fine and move-on situation. They issued a suspension. Let that word sit there for a second. Suspension. In professional tennis, a suspension is nuclear. A fine is a parking ticket. A suspension is a court order. It means you don't play. It means you lose ranking points for events you miss. It means sponsors start making phone calls and asking uncomfortable questions. It means your team sits in a hotel room somewhere trying to figure out how to manage the PR fallout while you sit and stew over how you got here. The WTA, an organization that has generally preferred dialogue and financial penalties over outright bans, took one look at this situation and decided that the punishment needed to send a message louder than any dollar figure could. The official statement from the tournament and WTA officials was precise and pointed. Behavior that attacks the dignity of a fellow competitor and violates the tour's conduct standards will not be tolerated. Period. Full stop. End of sentence. Now, the reaction to this news has been, to use the most accurate possible description, absolutely volcanic. Start with social media. Within hours of the news breaking, the hashtag #RespectForEala was trending across platforms. Filipino fans, and anyone who has ever been on the receiving end of those communities knows just how organized, passionate, and numerically powerful they are, mobilized instantly. Thousands upon thousands of posts, tweets, videos, and comment threads flooded the internet, expressing solidarity with Eala, outrage at the behavior, and support for the WTA's decision to act. This wasn't a niche tennis crowd. This spilled into mainstream social media, with figures outside the sport weighing in, from Filipino celebrities to politicians to everyday fans who follow Eala's career the way people follow their favorite team. The tennis community itself reacted with a mixture of shock, sadness, and grim recognition. Because the ugly truth is this: discrimination and disrespect in professional sport is not a new story. It has just never been cool to admit it out loud. Players from minority backgrounds, from developing tennis nations, from countries that don't have the same historical footprint in the sport as the powerhouses of Europe and the Americas, have long spoken in hushed tones about the double standards they face. The way their performances are scrutinized differently. The way they are welcomed, or not welcomed, into certain locker room cultures. Eala's experience, if the reports are accurate, is a chapter in a story that is far too long and far too familiar. But here's what is different now. The WTA acted. That matters enormously. In previous eras, and previous decades of tennis, incidents like this were quietly buried. A conversation happened behind closed doors. A handshake was arranged. The victim was asked, sometimes implicitly, sometimes explicitly, to just let it go and move on. The perpetrator faced little to no consequence. That culture of silence has been steadily dismantled in recent years as athletes have become more vocal, as social media has made secrecy nearly impossible, and as governing bodies have been forced to confront the gap between their stated values and their actual behavior. The WTA saying, loudly and publicly, "This is not acceptable and here is the consequence," is not a small thing. It is a statement about who women's tennis is for and who it wants to represent. And in that context, this suspension becomes bigger than one incident between two players in Doha. Now let's talk about Alexandra Eala for a moment, because she deserves that conversation separately from all the noise and controversy surrounding this incident. Because while the storm rages around her, she has, by all accounts, handled this with the same quiet dignity and composure that has characterized everything she has done in her career. Eala's story is one of those rare, genuinely inspiring ones in sport. She did not come from one of the traditional tennis powerhouses. The Philippines is not Spain or the Czech Republic or the United States, countries with deep tennis infrastructure, well-funded academies, and generations of pro players creating pathways and blueprints for the next wave. The Philippines is a country where basketball is king, where boxing is religion, and where tennis has historically been a sport of the privileged few rather than a national conversation. Eala changed that. Her junior career was a revelation. She became the first Filipino to win a Grand Slam junior singles title, and she did it with such grace, such tactical brilliance, and such emotional maturity that the tennis world sat up and took notice in a serious way. The Rafa Nadal Academy in Manacor, Spain, which has been her base and training ground, saw something special in her early and invested accordingly. And that investment has been paying dividends ever since. Her transition to the professional tour has not been without its turbulence. No transition ever is. The jump from junior to professional tennis is one of the most brutal in sport. The margins are tighter. The opponents are stronger, smarter, and more experienced. The scheduling is relentless. The travel is punishing. And all of that happens while you are still, in many cases, a teenager trying to figure out who you are as a person, not just as an athlete. But Eala has navigated that transition with a poise that belies her years. She has spoken beautifully and candidly about the pressures of being a public figure, about the need for privacy amid all the attention, about the challenge of remaining true to yourself when the whole world has an opinion about every point you win or lose. She is thoughtful. She is articulate. She is, by every account from those who have spent time around the locker room, genuinely kind. She does not carry herself with the manufactured humility of someone performing niceness for the cameras. She is simply, genuinely, a quality human being. The next time these two players are in the same draw, and given their rankings and trajectories, that is an inevitability, not a possibility. The atmosphere will be electric in the most charged, tense way imaginable. It will not be just a tennis match. It will be a reckoning. A chance for both players to step onto the court carrying the full weight of this story and let the outcome settle, at least symbolically, the question of who handled this chapter of their careers with more grace, more professionalism, and more raw competitive fire. And when that day comes, you better believe that Court Vision Plus will be in the front row with a full breakdown, the full analysis, and the full behind-the-scenes perspective that you will not get anywhere else. Because that is what we do here. We do not just watch the match. We live the match. We feel it, we analyze it, we put it in context, and we bring it to you in a way that makes you feel like you were there on the court, feeling the heat, hearing the crowd, watching history unfold one point at a time. We are in an era of women's tennis that is genuinely special. The talent is extraordinary. The stories are compelling. The rivalries are building into something that will be talked about for years. And moments like this one in Doha, uncomfortable as they are, painful as they are part of the full, unfiltered picture of a sport that is alive, that is growing, and that is still working out what kind of institution it wants to be. The WTA's response here is a step in the right direction. Not the last step, not the only step, but a step. And steps matter. Alexandra Eala will continue to compete. She will continue to rise. She will continue to represent not just the Philippines, but every young girl in Asia and beyond who dares to pick up a tennis racket and dream of competing with the best in the world. Her story is nowhere near its final chapter. In fact, if the trajectory of her career tells us anything, the best chapters are still ahead of her. And we are going to be here to document every single one of them. The controversy in Doha is a chapter. A dramatic, ugly, important chapter. But it is not the ending. Not for Eala. Not for Valentová. Not for women's tennis. The ending is still being written, one match at a time. This is a developing story, and we will bring you every update as it breaks, the length of the suspension, any potential appeal from Valentová's camp, the WTA's full official statement when it drops, and of course, Eala's own response as she addresses the media and her fans in the coming days. This story is far from over, and Court Vision Plus is not going anywhere. Now, Court Visionaries, you know I always bring the heat, but the real energy in this channel comes from you. This story has every element: injustice, drama, resilience, accountability, and two extraordinary young athletes at the center of a saga that will shape their legacies. I want to know what you think. Did the WTA make exactly the right call issuing a suspension, or do you believe a fine and mandatory training would have been a more constructive response? Was this a moment of youthful stupidity that deserves forgiveness, or a pattern of behavior that needed to be stopped loudly and publicly? And most importantly, what does Alex Eala do next to turn this moment into rocket fuel for her season? Drop your thoughts in the comments right now. Let's get a real conversation going. If you are riding with Eala through this, drop a flag in the comments. If you think the punishment was too harsh or too lenient, make your case. This community is a smart one, and I want to hear the full range of perspectives. If this video brought you the deep dive you were looking for, the context, the analysis, the full story behind the headlines, then hit that like button right now. It takes 1 second and it tells the algorithm that Court Vision Plus is where the real tennis conversation lives. Share this video with your tennis friends, your basketball friends who are secretly becoming tennis fans, your family group chats, anyone who deserves to know what is happening on the WTA Tour right now. Because this story matters beyond tennis. It is a story about respect, about representation, and about accountability. And if you are not yet subscribed to Court Vision Plus with your notifications turned on, what are you doing? Seriously. We are building something special here. Every week, we bring you the inside story on the biggest moments in the sport, with the depth and the energy that you simply cannot find anywhere else on this platform. Hit subscribe. Turn on the bell. Become part of the Court Vision Plus community, where every court, every match, every controversy gets the full treatment it deserves. This is Court Vision Plus, signing off from what has been one of the most explosive days in the 2026 WTA calendar. The desert sun may have set over Doha, but this story is burning hotter than ever. Keep your eyes open, keep your notifications on, and we will see you on the next one. Stay sharp. Stay passionate. And always, always, keep your eye on the ball.